Dan Qian Min Meng. The center of the body. And it feels as though it's more dense than what's around it. So it's a gravitational center. Every part of you is gravitating towards this point. And now let's breathe. Tightening the belly. That pulls it in, pulls my head over and my tail under. And then relaxing that and tightening the Min Meng. Relaxing that, tightening the belly. And now just moving from leg to leg. Feel it a little bit differently than normal. I sink into the leg and it becomes like a spring, coiling up and shortening. And I want to feel that spring throwing like a jolt of energy across, which my body then follows. Sink into this leg, something is moving here, and my body follows it. I sink, the energy flows out, and my body gets dragged along. full and empty. This becomes full, this becomes empty. The full side wants to throw me out because it becomes too compressed, and the empty side is calling me. So we want to feel the inevitability of change. When one side becomes full, it then needs to empty. When one side becomes empty, it needs to fill. And then to riding horse. Now let's work on the fourfold. Earth and sky to start with, or earth and heavens. So I'm going down, scooping up some earth and bringing it up into the downshift. Breathing the ground. I want to interact with the ground. I need to have strong legs, and I need to have a desire to go down into them. I'm bringing the earth up into my belly. And now the same thing going upwards. Here, leaning back a little bit so the heart really looks upwards, and just drawing some of that energy down into the heart. The movement's as big as possible. So it's a very simple exercise. I repeat it, and that generates some energy. And then there's a sense that the exercise takes on a life and changes me. This is what we want all the time with the exercising that we do. We're not just expending energy to stay fit. We're trying to change, become better people, more aware. Basically, what that means to be a better person is just one that's more aware. As your energy improves, so does your awareness. And then both are coming down, and now doing the earth one. Taking up the earth into the belly, reaching up, bringing down the sky or the heavens into the heart. Continuing, reaching down. We're effectively doing a figure of 8 with each arm. Back to this Dantian Ming Men. The Chinese word for nature is just the two symbols, heaven and earth, together. So this is our way of connecting with nature. So we are sandwiched between the earth and the sky. And if we can open up to both and let ourselves bleed in and out of both, then we are more in tune with nature. riding horse. Feel the arms and the legs almost symmetrical. Aware of the sacrum, from whence your legs reach out, but also aware of this midpoint of the thoracic spine, from where your arms come out. And now that same exercise, heaven and earth, but left and right. I pulled into the center, and then I turn to the left and I open up. And I just embrace what's there to my left and bring it in. And then I turn to the right. So now we've introduced turning. And I want to feel my legs turning me. Here my 2 feet are pushing apart, turning me. And then here it's as though my 2 feet are trying to pull towards each other, and that draws me back to the front. And then here my 2 feet are pushing away, and then towards each other. It's subtle, but this is what we want to try and feel, if only in the imagination. So this leg is pushing that way, and this leg is having to push that way to keep this hip back so it doesn't go too far there. And then they both pull together, which stretches these hips apart, brings me back to the front. And then the 2 feet push away from each other, which would normally bring me up like this, but because I want to stay down, it will twist me. And back to riding horse. And now just turning and letting the arms go. Feel the air, the resistance of the air. Imagine the air is quite viscous. You're having to work the legs to push yourself through this thick medium. And back. And then feeling the structure of this, you're containing this space, like you're hugging this space in front of you. So this, in a sense, is where your attention is funneling into. But you also want a feeling that another aspect of your attention is opening up to everything else, particularly what's behind you. It's a bit like the back brain, the primitive brain, and what's in front is like the frontal brain, the sort of relatively late brain. So this is where we sort of think, and this is much more to do with more primitive things, intuitions. So what I want to do is learn how to inhibit my frontal brain so that the back of the brain can open up. Very important for a martial artist, because this part of the brain is slow. There's a real response time. Whereas what John used to say was the back brain, it's so quick, it's almost before. It's almost like there's part of your back brain that has actually initiated the things that you end up responding to. Focusing and bringing everything in here so that this can really reach out and around. And then, in a sense, this is the other two aspects of the fourfold. So Heidegger's fourfold was earth, sky, and what he called the divinities, which is really spirit, and mortals, so other living things, particularly people. So we're sandwiched between earth and sky. But if you're alive, if you're awake, then there's a sense that you're also sandwiched between the world that you're interacting with and the world that's coming through you. So your inspiration or your enthusiasm. It's very much like an artist that, when they create, they're not interested in truth in the sense of veracity. So artists are no longer interested in painting a picture that looks like something else. What they want is for that painting, not so much the finished product, but the act of painting to truly be their energy, what they consider to be their energy that's coming out. And any creative person worth their salt realizes very quickly that what comes out of them in the creative act is not them. It's come from somewhere else. It's the muse, inspiration. Jasper Johns used to say, I want to paint in such a way that I can say it's not me. And this is what John found. So John, before he started Tai Chi, he was a poet. And he used to discipline himself to sit down every morning, write a poem. And he said, there he would be sitting down with this blank page and he'd start writing. And within no time, something was coming out of him that was inspired. It wasn't really him. He was saying things that, a bit like when you're dreaming, sometimes when you dream and you dream something that you've never experienced, you think, where did that come from? So this is what we want to connect to. This is the aspect of our humanity that we want to wake up. So when I'm communicating with someone, what's coming out of me and coming into them is not me. I'm not plastering them with me. I'm allowing something to come through me. I'm much more like a channel, especially true, when you're teaching this sort of shit. There's a real sense that there's something coming from the teaching, from the past, from the tradition, that's just bubbling out. But this should be the way we are all the time. If you're properly awake and inspired, if you possess spirit, then what comes out of you is alive as well. Just a bit of the full and empty. So bringing the ground up. I like this because it's all heart. To allow the ground to come up into me, I have to feel it and invite it and soften from the heart. It's nothing to do with my mind. It won't happen because I want it to happen. So something here softens, the heart softens, and that makes me move. And it also makes the ground come up into me. This is yielding mind. Yielding must come from the heart. I'm not yielding in order to attack. I'm not yielding in order to get an effect, in order to get my own way or whatever. I'm yielding because that's all there is. Eventually, it's just all yielding. It's just all bleeding. The ground is bleeding into me. So this is the fourfold. So each of the aspects of the fourfold bleeds. bleeds into us and we bleed into it. So here the earth is bleeding up into me and I'm bleeding out into it with this leg, and then they swap round. And it sort of happens naturally with the sky. The sky is just everything above ground level, really. It's the atmosphere, effectively. So because I'm breathing, I'm bleeding in and out of the atmosphere all the time. That I want to be really aware of that. And this is meditation. That's the first thing you do when you meditate. You just become conscious of the breathing. Feel the air coming into the lungs and then feel it exiting. So a little bit of you is bleeding out with that exiting air, and a little bit of the sky is coming into you. It's like a miracle. Then I also want to feel it with those other two, with the divinities and mortals. So I'm bleeding in and out of the earth and the sky, but also spirit is seeping into me and out of me all the time. And I'm always in a process of communication with other living things, not just people. Often people are the worst because they're so narcissistic and so with an agenda. It's often much easier to communicate with inanimate objects, with that chair. Certainly with plants and animals. The other foot forwards. Now the cross energy. So the earth comes up and then it comes into the opposite hand. This is quite different. It's the same, really. But in order to get it to come up from the sacrum into the arm, I really have to relax across the sacrum. If I want the energy to come up into the upper body, then I really have to spread here. And I have to see it. So to see this pathway through, up the spine, across the shoulder, into the arm, something in me has to be just a little bit more courageous and a little bit more cheerful than just getting the energy coming up and down like this. So it comes up and ooh, and it comes out. Taoism has a fourfold as well, which is pretty much the same as Heidegger's. So in Taoism, the fourfold is heaven and earth, and man, and the Tao, which is pretty much the same. I just prefer to think in terms of divinities because it's just more of my tradition than the Tao. You know, so we come from the British Isles, which in animism for a long time, you know, nature is beautiful in the British Isles and really rich. And so man was very much in tune with nature. and very much of nature. That's the sort of thing we want to just open up to, the possibility of that. And so when you're walking, when you see a tree, you're aware that it's a tree, but you're also aware that it has a spirit. It has a tree spirit. And it can be communicated with. You can touch it, you can speak to it, and you can bleed in and out of each other. So you can be enriched by that experience of the tree. And now, the figure of 8. The figure of 8 is our continuity, our mind continuous, our thread of unbroken golden time. And if you can keep this thread going for longer than 8 seconds, then you're extending your attention span. Using it to walk. So I'm going just around the feet to start with. So same thing. As I go around one foot, I can step with the other one. For it to be meditation, I have to feel it slipping from side to side. We want our meditation to break the illusion that we are a separate self, separated from the rest of the world. So I really need both sides of the body to fall away from each other. Myself, my beingness, my activity is really just the resonance of these two sides. There's no substance other than that to myself. I'm slipping from the left to the right. It's very much like rocking a child to sleep, really relaxing the body. And if you're tired, then it will send you to sleep. The image of climbing the rope. So you can step forwards and then imagine you're pulling with this foot to pull yourself into it. So as your foot goes down on the ground, it's tugging yourself forwards. And now let's just finish with a bit of the figure of eight exercise, alternating figures of eights. So imagine, remember when we did at the beginning, we did the earth and the sky. So it's basically the same thing, but I'm just splitting up the arms. One is reaching for the sky and one is reaching for the earth. And it turns me because the two sides of the body are doing opposite things. The work should take us into the unknown. It should expose something that we hadn't realized. It just teaches new things. If you can get that, then you're connecting to the divinities. You're allowing spirit to come in. And then just bringing it back to riding force. The work should open up and wake up facets of you that you didn't know about, that you didn't realize was there. Whenever I used to go and visit John, which was eventually 5 times a week, I think, he used to start off by saying, "How is your energy?" And I would start telling him how I felt. And he would say, "Look, I've got no interest in how you feel. How you feel is just your opinion of things. What I want to know is how good is your energy? Can we have a good session together?" And so the feelings are just something you should just discard. It's got nothing to do with anything. Certainly nothing beyond your ego. just how well can you enter into an exchange, into a communication, not so much with another person on a normal, mundane level, but just, with the things around you. And what was interesting is it's often when I felt at my worst, when I felt tired or frazzled because I'd had to rush to get to him, that's when my energy was actually at its best. And when I felt well rested and contented and happy with myself, that's when I was reluctant to spoil that and engage in communication. So it's a tricky business. It requires endless investigation. And just bringing the foot up and just try and get the sacrum underneath the heart. So my sacrum is reaching down. I don't want my legs to push my sacrum back like this and tip my head forwards. That's the main adjustment that we need to make. We need to bring this forwards so that the sacrum can really seep down into the legs. And then the action of the legs will bubble up into the heart. Like most of Tai Chi, the more correct you get it, the more it will hurt, the more the muscles will really ache. We normally get it wrong because we're afraid of the pain. Deal with pain by allowing it in and entering it. If you try and push it out, if you try and partition it, that's when it hurts. If you can let the pain in so that everything is in pain, then that's when the pain stops. I remember Nitzan's saying, the peace that we seek is always to the other side of the pain. So you have to go through the pain to get to it. So the peace this side of the pain is basically narcissism. And narcissism and depression are the two main pathologies, really. And in a sense, they're the same thing. Then just let it settle. And just come to that stillness. So that stillness is very much this, it's soft. There's a lilt in it all the time. It's not a stiff, cold hardness. It's sort of still. As the Chinese would say, still but not still.